even how we can move forward as a country. We both love Uganda. We all love Uganda. But I do have the gentleman here who as well love Uganda. Well, my name is Modern Kenyana. I have Robert and Felix Nkunda. Felix Nkunda, good morning. And as a person who loves Uganda, it's a Thursday. What do you love most about Uganda? Yes.
I think that's a bit unfair for you to assert.
So you don't love Uganda?
Well, I love this country. This is my country, but not in your context. Your love is overwhelming.
Yeah.
But anyway, there's much to love about this beautiful country, honestly and truly. Like one of the things are the people. Like you can never lose happiness, excitement with Ugandans. There's always something about Ugandans. It's in their character, it's in their way of life, it's in how they choose to do things or how they choose to live life. So I love the people of Uganda, I must say.
Well, I don't know. I thought I loved Uganda. It's saying overwhelming. Then I remember there's someone else who loves Uganda much more. That is the gentleman, Kambura. Yesterday he was here, all dressed in the Uganda flag. I'm like, yeah.
And he talked about Ugandan flagged underwear?
Man, that guy,
vest.
Underwear. He said people should start wearing underwear with the Ugandan flag.
But
like,
is that necessarily what shows the love for the country?
I guess by the time you wear stuff like that, my dear, that's another level of love.
Okie dokie, okay.
Robert, what do you love most about Uganda? Good morning.
Guten Morgen. Hope you're fine.
Yeah.
Guten Morgen, Felix.
Morning.
And of course to our viewers, a lovely morning to you. Thank you so much for waking up with us. What I love most about Ugandans, about my country, is the weather and the fertile soils. Because many in Uganda, you can eat a mango when you've never planted any. You see, we grew up eating jackfruit, mangoes, mpafu, jambura, there were so many things, but you don't even know who planted them. Not so many countries where you have that kind of soil, that you don't look after a crop, but you still find something to eat. And then the weather. Not so many countries have the two rainy seasons that we are blessed to have as a country, despite these days climate change coming in here and there. But those are things I find very unique about Uganda, that you can tell someone you're staying in Entebbe, you tell them, well, I'm delayed by rain, yet in Kampala, it's totally hot and by the time you enter, they're looking at you and they're like, man, you're looking wet, what happened? You see, that's the love, the reason that I love our country. And even our national anthem, it's there. The fertile, grown soils that feed us. Wow, that's the uniqueness, and that's why I love Uganda.
Well, personally, I think for me, it's the food. I have seen that, because for the times I've moved around the country, at least to every region in this country, I've been there somewhere, there is something unique about the food. You're able to immediately take it on, even if it's, you know, their traditional cuisine, and you know, like this area is known for this particular dish. It's very easy for you to take it in. I'll tell you my experience. One time I was in Italy and it reached time to serve dinner, and I think there was a specific dish for the people in Turin. So that is something they served us first. But guess what? All the food that they served at that particular moment was cold. Very cold food. And there is that red meat they also serve. Like, it's cold. And I was hungry. Most of us were. We thought, you know, I mean, this is the food. So we started eating and all these things we didn't understand. Only for a few minutes to pass, and then they bring the home food. And I'm like, whoa. Someone should have warned us. First of all, whatever we ate wasn't even that sweet. We were just eating to. But that is not something you find here in Uganda. or even actually most of the places I would go to in Africa, if there is a dish you easily relate to, and
Yes.
you're not even wondering, you know, after this there's going to come this is going to be served with this. So Uganda has good food. I should say that is something that we can, you know, be proud of as Ugandans. But also it's a throwback Thursday. There are things we always look back to and feel like maybe on this particular Thursday, this is something that happened within the country that we are proud of as a country. I don't know, maybe Robert would want to look back into 86 and say, that is a game changer for our country. But there are probably things that have made Uganda stand up high up there and holding our flag that we can reflect on in the past. Robert, what would be that for you?
I'll begin with the piece we have today. When you talked about 1986, by then we had a number of, NRA had conquered and had captured power, but we still had pockets of insecurity. Today, one of the things that is flying our flag high is that we've become a security giant within the region. Talk about AMSOM, talk about, you know, any place where there has to be peacekeeping missions, you cannot miss Uganda. And most of the times as other countries are delaying, for us our boys and girls are already there. So the fact that for these years we've been stable with absence of war, and we've been able to export. One of the things we export, by the way, though it's not so much taken in, is security. We have our armies in different countries on peacekeeping missions. So I'm proud to say that when I see my flag, when I hear countries say that, well, had it not been Ugandan army coming to help in this situation, maybe we wouldn't have the peace that we wouldn't have the peace we have. So I feel proud as a Ugandan.
Felix, what do you look back to and you feel like this is something that as a country we should be proud of and probably
starting from
standing
1962.
on? He's not that old, Robert. You know he's not that old.
You know, it's that age is a blessing. It's something I think all of us are praying for. So if God has given it to us, we glorify Him.
62.
It's not something I can even make argument about. I'm not this, I'm not this. I'm thankful for the age that I have. And any of us should be, because that's our morning prayer every day for
Definitely.
life. So, but today I will a bit go far from that thing. I don't know why Molen today has this whole patriotic glitter around her with Uganda, but for me, I'll stretch far from that. And today morning has come in as remembering something. I don't know if any of you have been victims. You know this thing called student teachers? You remember student teachers?
Yes. Those were very beautiful.
I was a student teacher at one point.
No.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
I was teaching pure mathematics in S5 and S6.
No, but student teachers were people who were studying to be
To be
teachers.
teachers. Now, how do you come in as a student?
No, it wasn't necessarily
just
people.
volunteer.
Yeah, for you maybe you're
After
just making
S6,
ends
after
meet.
my senior 6, I think they looked at our results that we had performed in mock,
So they
and
asked-
they were very excellent. 2 schools actually took me on to assist with pure math.
Yeah. So those student teachers used to like.
But what is your problem?
They used to make me. But
teaching
Yeah.
skills.
it was just a good experience with it.
What was your experience, Felix?
I used to like them. Actually, I would be very excited when teaching student teachers would be coming in. Like even knew their calendar, because one, they were a bit softer.
Yes.
They were a bit more loving. They were a bit more, considerate with everything, even the way they teach.
And this is not to cane.
And they used to be smart. They used to come with, like in primary, they used to come with these files. They used to have a ruler. That was like their identity. Rulers, what? Pencil bags for the ladies. And for us now, like here, we used to shimoni here. Then, of course, in secondary, we used to have, but the ones in secondary are a bit hard than the primary ones. The guys in secondary used to have lots of show. But there was this one student teacher. Actually, even later on, I think she became a teacher. She used to teach geography in S.O. level. Oh, that woman was beautiful. She used to have a good body. Like, everyone was like,
Yeah, I knew that would come in somewhere.
Like she used to
as a
have.
reason.
Is
I
that
don't know why
graphics?
students would really like that about
And every time she would
teachers.
teach, man, like everything was good about her. Her smile,
But
her
then would that
calmness.
enable you to
Pick whatever they were teaching.
teach
or
what
just
you were
say
lost in the
Pick,
beauty?
we are picking. Our eyes are only picking. What? We can't confuse. You have to focus.
That's a
You can
very
only
good
pick one. Your mind and eyes can't be working at the same time. You have to choose. So perhaps we chose to let the eyes work.
Yeah.
Molin.
If you really passed that particular subject, I'm glad you did.
But only there for a
honestly-
small
And
time,
Felix
that was
is
the
just
bad thing.
reminding me of some cartoon I saw in the papers. And the father was asking the child, why did you fail mathematics? And in the imaginary of the child, there was this well-carved teacher. And she was like, this is the reason why I failed mathematics. A teacher, very body-carved, and comes in skimpy clothes. So how would this man concentrate on mathematics?
You concentrate on what they are teaching you,
But you
not
know-
how the teacher is dressed like.
You're going money.
No, there must be dressing standards for some teachers, to be honest.
But
in school,
away
otherwise-
from that, guys,
How many
away
dresses
from
the way
that.
you want. But let me just tell you a very short story, Molin and Robert. I just been remembering. There's a time I went to see, I think I was in P2 or P1 from here. No, I think it was P1. I had a cousin of mine who was in the same class. Now, this guy was a bully. I think, man, the guy for some reason, I can't say his name, but he just chose to be a hard person in life.
Yeah.
One time we get our reports, I remember I was number 3, and the guy was number, I think, 17 or something. You know how someone can turn your excitement into misery? And the guy made me believe that I was one of the worst performers, and he was among the best performers. Like we went home, him singing.
Like
1,
you
2,
believed.
3, 1, 2, 3. At least in the 117. At least in the 117. 1, 2, 3, 1, 7. And but when he reached home, man, you don't cry into rituals.
But
So-
in that position, you did better.
That's the thing. But
So
the guy, like the people, was so manipulative. He made me believe he had performed better because his explanation was that 17 was a bigger number than 3. So I was clearly not. That's what kept saying 1, 2, 3. Me, I have 17 position. You think it's easy? So I went home sulking. Not until I had to get an interpreter.
Well, I believe actually bullies start at
You
that
can imagine at that
tender
level.
age. Yeah, there are bullies everywhere. But there are a lot of things happening in the country, and we do have the Iranian president in the country. One of the things that out of his engagement with President Museveni, he did also talk about praising Uganda for the values that we have for family, and that is something that to be proud of. No wonder today I'm just proud of Uganda and all patriotic. There is something about our values that not anyone else has been able to take away from us, and the president has been at the forefront of that, ensuring that we can protect our culture, our tradition and our values. But also a lot of stories happening within the country. Robert, what do we have?
Well, we'll begin with the visit of the Iranian president, who is currently on an African tour, and that is aiming at strengthening diplomatic relations with various African states. As part of his tour, President Rais visited Uganda, making his first official visit to the country. Upon his arrival at State House Entebbe, he was warmly received by President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. The visit held great significance as it symbolized the mutual interest of both nations in enhancing bilateral ties and exploring avenues for cooperation. To honor the visiting president, a ceremonial 21-gun salute was accorded, reflecting the protocol and respect that he was given. During their meeting, President Rais and President Museveni engaged in fruitful discussions aimed at deepening cooperation between the two countries.
Now, a cross-section of political and technical leaders from 10 districts in Rwenzori sub-region today they did meet yesterday with the Prime Minister Robin Anabanja to follow up on issues earlier raised during the Local Government Service Delivery Assessment Conference, which took place last week. Now, the meeting took place at the office of the Prime Minister in Kampala.
And still moving on, the Police Directorate of Traffic and Road Safety has urged the public to report any broken down vehicles along highways to minimize accidents resulting from road obstruction. The Directorate, however, declared limited power to these broken vehicles as most of the responsibility was bestowed into the Ministry of Works and Transport as per the Transport and the Road Safety Act.
President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni has directed the Attorney General Kirewa Kiwanuka to immediately report to Cabinet on Monday with proposals and amendments in the 2019 Road Act, which according to the President have given leeway to poor road users to move away scot-free. Now, this was part of his condolence message read by the Vice President of Uganda, retired Major Jessica Alupo, during the burial of the business emperor Apollo and Elias Aponye. That was on Wednesday, July 2023 in Muhanga, Ruchiga districts.
And onto the international stories, a heatwave is sweeping across parts of southern Europe and northwestern Africa with potential record-breaking temperatures in the coming days. Temperatures are expected to surpass 40 degrees Celsius in parts of Spain, France, Greece, Croatia and Turkey. In Italy, temperatures could reach as high as 48.8 degrees Celsius, and a red alert warning has been issued for 10 cities, including Florence and Rome. On Tuesday, a man in his 40s died after collapsing in northern Italy. According to Italian media, the report was that the 40-year-old worker was painting zebra crossing lines in town of Lodi near Milan before he collapsed from the heat. He was taken to the hospital where he later died. And we are facing unbearable heatwave, Italian politician Nicola Frontini tweeted. Now, in another story, Elon Musk has launched an artificial intelligence AI company to challenge ChatGPT creator OpenAI, which the billionaire tech mogul has accused of being woke. On Wednesday, xAI said that the goal of the new company would be to understand the true nature of the universe. What are the most fundamental unanswered questions? xAI said on Twitter, which is owned by Musk. Now, the CEO of Tesla and SpaceX said in a tweet that his company would seek to understand reality, and xAI's staff, including former employees of OpenAI, Google, Microsoft, Tesla, DeepMind, and the University of Toronto, according to the company's website. Now, in South Africa, a mass shooting has left 6 people dead and 4 wounded when 3 men entered a yard of a home and opened fire, according to police. The shootings happened on Tuesday night in the township of Kwanubule, near the town of Karienge in the Eastern Cape province. The suspects have not been arrested and a search is underway, police said on Wednesday. South Africa has one of the highest homicide rates in the world, and at least 2,629 people were killed within the firearm in the first 3 months of this year. According to the official crime statistics, that is a rate of 30 people a day, grim figures for the country of 60 million. And in climate news, the color of the ocean has changed significantly over the last 20 years, and human-caused climate change is likely responsible, according to the new study. More than 56% of the world's oceans have changed color to an extent that cannot be explained by natural variabilities, said a team of researchers led by scientists from the National Oceanography Center in the UK and Massachusetts. The Institute of Technology in the US also said in a statement. Now, tropical oceans close to the equator in particular have become more greener in the past 2 decades, reflecting changes in their ecosystem, according to the study published Wednesday in the journal Nature. Well, quite a number of stories happening, obviously, across here as well as internationally, but also want to look at what is making headlines in our dailies. Felix, what do we have?
Now, Makerere intake reveals regional inequality, and that's one of the things we've been saying time and again. And Aponye laid to rest as driver is charged in court. Now, relationship, a love brewed at workplace. And of course, Museveni asks Iran's Raisi for help in oil refinery project.
Well, but also what is coming through this morning, there has been a fire and in some area that is around industrial area where property worth millions of shillings is believed to have been destroyed in a fire that is across the Star building on the 8th Street industrial area in Kampala. And of course, we know that authorities are already on ground to ascertain the cause of this fire, and that was earlier in the morning. But we had at least seen a decline in these fires.
Well, one thing for me when I hear fire destroying such buildings, I get worried. Why? Because very few businesses or buildings are insured in Uganda. So what does that mean? That you may find if this building, if it was a factory, it may never be again. If people were having offices, having whatever, non-insured businesses, non-insured buildings, because you don't go for insurance in our lovely country, Uganda. Very few people think about it. Then they are gone. But I also hope it's not later on we don't discover it was arson. Because then if it's arson, it is intended. And if it's intended, what is the reason for that? I remember there was a place in Uganda here. Have you ever heard of a place called Parkyard?
I think it rings a bell. Yeah.
Called
Now, Parkyard?
It rings a
It
bell.
was once there. And it was employing a lot of people who had businesses there next to St. Kudembe Market. Now, this place was burnt about 4 times. These poor people would have their businesses, they wake up, they're told Parkyard, they eat, and every time, police would prove it was arson. I remember there's a story even where said this is the hole, these are the chemicals used, until I think that traders lost hope. And as we speak today, Parkyard is a very big arcade and something like that. And you wonder, no one had ever been arrested. So I just hope that there's no one interested. Ugandans have lost moral, there's so much moral decay.
You know, there's a song by Pastor Wilson Bugembe. Of course, in English, one would say what goes around comes around. And Bugembe's song says, Katonda wabanaku kola. Abatalina mani, it's only God who fights for them. And it's a matter of time. All these things catch up with these people.
You might talk about the arcade that was built in that area, but how far is it? Is it working?
Oh, it's doing great.
It's doing great.
It's doing great.
But for who?
So Kama doesn't always come back.
Oh, no. You'll be surprised who owns it now.
Because
is it still to
I've
that?
always asked myself.
There's a lot that is not known.
There is one man I knew, and Felix knows him, and was a prominent celebrity. He was called Rocky Giant. This guy had a store there, and he would bring these Timberland boots. Recently, I met him. He looked so...
And he's not the only one.
And as I was interacting with him, he told me, Mwana, even both of us had to shed tears. Not that I knew him so much, but when I remember, told me that's where I began. So many people.
But well, all in all, we know that there are lots of property that is destroyed there. You might talk about insurance for the building, but this is money that is gone into
And it's the same thing.
This is not something that any human being should intentionally do. To,
For example,
to
you look at schools,
business.
Molen. Same thing with schools.
The school
They
for the
tell you
blind,
there's
Salama,
there's
school
one,
for the
yes.
blind. How do you ban blind
You remember, they were saying that
children?
it is allegedly arson, but
It
all
was
that I've
proved
said-
it was us, or not even alleged.
As I said, it is only God who fights for the powerless.
God works in mysterious
Yes.
ways. You might not know, Robert.
For you,
how
as you go to
things play
slumber,
out.
he's
But
not
well,
slumbering.
it's a Thursday. It's a Thursday, and we want to, throw you back in time, give you that inspirational song for today, and hopefully it does take you into the good old times. When we get back, we do have a topical discussion here in our newsroom that we would want you to be a part of, so do not miss out. For now, we go for the inspirational song of the day.
Live.
Well, Well, hello there. Good morning and a very warm welcome. It is Good Morning Uganda, and we're here to make sure that right as you start your Thursday, we're able to a little bit bring in a bit of warmth into your morning. And of course, that's where we take you through the current affairs, what is happening within the country and beyond, but also what is sparking interest in terms of topical discussions where you get to know and also have your opinion on what is going on across the country, suggest solutions if there are problems, or even how we can move forward as a country. We both love Uganda. We all love Uganda. And I do have the gentlemen here who as well love Uganda. Well, my name is Molin Kenyana. I have Robert and Felix Nkunda. Felix Nkunda, good morning. And as a person who loves Uganda, it's a Thursday. What do you love most about Uganda? Yes.
I think that's a bit unfair for you to assert.
So you don't love Uganda?
Well, I love this country. This is my country, but not in your context. Your love is overwhelming.
Yeah.
But anyway, there's much to love about this beautiful country, honestly and truly. Like one of the things are the people.
Well, hello there. Good morning and a very warm welcome. It is Good Morning Uganda, and we're here to make sure that right as you start your Thursday, we're able to a little bit bring in a bit of warmth into your morning. And of course, that's where we take you through the current affairs, what is happening within the country and beyond, but also what is sparking interest in terms of topical discussions where you get to know and also have your opinion on what is going on across the country, suggest solutions if there are problems, or even how we can move forward as a country. We both love Uganda. We all love Uganda. But I do have the gentlemen here who as well love Uganda. Well, my name is Molin Kenyana. I have Robert and Felix Nkunda. Felix Nkunda, good morning. And as a person who loves Uganda, it's a Thursday. What do you love most about Uganda? Yes.
I think that's a bit unfair for you to assert.
So you don't love Uganda?
Well, I love this country. This is my country, but not in your context. Your love is overwhelming.
Yeah.
But anyway, there's much to love about this beautiful country, honestly and truly. Like one of the things are the people.
Well, hello there. Good morning and a very warm welcome. It is Good Morning Uganda, and we're here to make sure that right as you start your Thursday, we're able to a little bit bring in a bit of warmth into your morning. And of course, that's where we take you through the current affairs, what is happening within the country and beyond, but also what is sparking interest in terms of topical discussions where you get to know and also have your opinion on what is going on across the country, suggest solutions if there are problems, or even how we can move forward as a country. We both love Uganda. We all love Uganda. But I do have the gentlemen here who as well love Uganda. Well, my name is Molin Kenyana. I have Robert and Felix Nkunda. Felix Nkunda, good morning. And as a person who loves Uganda, it's a Thursday. What do you love most about Uganda? Yes.
I think that's a bit unfair for you to assert.
So you don't love Uganda?
Well, I love this country. This is my country, but not.
Was brought to you by Gatawo with MTN Momo Advance. Momo Advance tops up your Momo to complete your transactions. Dial star 165 star 5 star 3 hash to apply. MTN Momo Advance is always available when you need it.
Bigirwa Kalisa Samuel is my name, Chief Administrative Officer, Kalio District Local Government. Kalio District currently runs a budget of 39 billion. So we basically implement central government funded projects and initiatives. There are a number of success stories we have registered over the past period. especially in health, under UGIFT, that's the Uganda Intergovernmental Fiscal Transfer Project, where we built a 650 million health center 3 at Uganda sub-county. It is a state-of-the-art project which is not likely to be elsewhere in the country. The other project we have to reckon with is the Bukamba City Secondary School, which we are going to commission very soon, costing about 1.9 billion Uganda shillings. And then we have also other projects in production and marketing under the marketing, production and marketing grant. And these include the 4-acre model farm initiative of the president. We have fisheries, fish farming. So government has basically invested a lot of infrastructure, a lot of funding in infrastructure development, and these projects are starting to bear fruits. We are moving as a local government, implementing government programs, basically the NRM government manifesto of His Excellency the President.
This is the University of Africa. On the streets, you get your real education. Here, everybody has a degree of something. But the most important qualification is imagination. His reason is to be the GOAT. The reason to imagine is to take the beat and make it lit. So no matter what your situation, just use your imagination.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, good morning, Uganda. We're looking at a topical discussion this morning. We want to understand when we talk about legislation, we do have a lot of things that are concerning. And one of the key issues is when we send the member of parliaments into these seats and to represent us at that level, what are we expecting them to do and how can they deliver? But then again, as we do have expectations over there, we also do understand that most of them actually do not make it to the parliamentary sittings. They don't participate in some of the committees that are put across in parliament, and they have not taken the initiative to actually probably even lobby for the constituencies that send them in parliament. Now, that is just a voice that any Ugandan would be concerned about. How come they are not attending? How come there is continuous absenteeism? Now, on top of that, the Speaker of Parliament did come out to say that probably there could be proposed cuts in wages that are given to some parliamentarians, especially the ones that keep absenting themselves of these parliamentary sittings. And of course, it does carry meaning because, after all, you're not representing, you're not taking part in what Parliament is doing. And as they're trying to pass some of these, laws, whatever Parliament is doing, you're nowhere to be, participative or to contribute. And so they believe that the Speaker is suggesting that you probably shouldn't be getting some of the attached allowances or wages, we might call it that. And we want to know what the implication of that could be, but also understand where the real problem is. As we continue to see members of parliament absenting themselves from these sittings, is it that they are too comfortable? Is it that there are no laws on something like that? Is it normal for a member of parliament to say, no, I'm not coming to parliament, maybe for the next 6 months? Or they can constantly give excuses, and we'll be going deep into that. I'll bring in Felix here. We're looking at an issue of parliamentarians not attending sittings. And, well, the Speaker is now moving to remove these wages, but we also look at how we get there. How do we get to such positions?
Well, first and foremost, Molen, it will be fair for us also to shape with probably a definitive approach to what Parliament is, and probably that would help us understand why it's a big deal that people be part of its proceedings without abscondment. It takes a place of appreciation of a governance formula that is called I think that emanates from some of the scholars like Aristotle, probably, who did defend the appreciation of governance in the three or tripartite approach of executive, legislature, and judiciary, for that matter. Taking note of the fact that Parliament in its own being is set aside to be the greatest appreciator of what we call checks and balances. And this is probably where the argument starts from. The excesses of the executive are clearly up high there. In countries like third world countries, they're up high there because of the struggle for development, both individual and national. So sometimes you need someone to check some of these excesses. But also in the same line, Parliament has a true and cardinal duty to pass laws. Now, one of the things that brings into what is attributed to become law is the true understanding of what society desires. That's why Parliament in its own self has a mannerism of sending its members back to constituency. Actually, in particular laws, if you've been keen to listen and to note, there are consultations. They tell them that you're going to go for council. If you think, remember which that was the amendment of 102, the various amendments or even laws, they've been sent back to consult because to bring into play that normative of representation. Now, what is representation? Representation would be that when Chirabo is sent to the August House, probably on behalf of Machindi, East or whatever, West or what it is, that he's carrying an opinion-based representation. What's the use then? That's why you see some people, when they're on plenary, they fight so hard to say something. For example, and some of their followers or voters have benefited. They bring to the national conference discussions about infrastructure, allocations, education, like all these other things. Now, the plenary or the seating is what gives you an opportunity to represent your constituents. Your absence in its own self means that you are not a representative. Now, a member of parliament is a direct elected person who is given mandate to represent the ideas, the views, the worries, the concerns of his or her electorate. So where else do you represent these views if you're not in parliament? If you're not on committees? Where? Is it in bars? Is it in lodges, your offices? Where? And from that point, the speaker is being quite genuine. The only problem we have, and part of the problem is brought in by also the style of governance, political governance in the country, that there's been a big contrast question whether or not political practices can be a career. You know, is politics a full-time career? I think that has been another challenge. You have members of parliament who are doctors, who are engineers, who are farmers, who are teachers, who are probably lawyers. Now, there's that contradiction. You're stepping here, and you also have to step here. And second, we also have members of parliament who are still government appointees. For example, in positions like ministers. Some of them are ambassadors. I know one who is an ambassador, and I was asking myself, when do they attend parliament if they're out of the... all these...
Does that happen?
Oh, you'll be surprised. You'll be surprised. So you can imagine Chirabo is a member of parliament, he's a minister, he sits on cabinet, he's well, Kachiko, his Excellency is sending him left, right.
He's a chairperson of about 5 boards of various parastatals. And
so clearly the question is, where does the priority lie now? But, and this has been another question, that one of the remedies of that the Speaker raised is to reduce on this multitasking. Maybe on the qualification of Member of Parliament, we should put that threshold. Someone should choose. They can't be employed again. And with government, maybe they can do a bit of concern. There should be some, because the reality of the matter is that people are busy. As far as we're out here thinking that members of parliament are getting lots of money, probably they're not enough. You can imagine people who have big constituencies. Now you can pick up people like Muhammad in Sedeko, member of parliament for Kampala. Look at the number of his members in the constituency. With the kind of politics we have here of begging, needy politics in Uganda, a birthday, wedding, death, burial, what? Everyone is looking up to member of parliament. Now you find that some of them have to, and some of them even deliberately hide. In Uganda we say, when they own, the thief is chasing the owner of the property, someone who came asking for votes now is hiding from the people who voted. It happens. When they know, hey, as long as people will see me at parliament, people will be waiting for me. So all these things must be put in order. There's a lot of laissez-faire for members of parliament. They are very lessly limited in terms of practice and how they execute their work. Everything is so open for them. They don't seem like they struggle with almost anything because of... we need to tighten the grip a bit more on entry and how you stay there. For example, it is so hard to bring out a member of parliament. But may I give you an example of a place where I vote in Rubaga South. I can tell you without fear of doubt and contradiction, I don't think member of parliament ever attends that house.
I've seen him.
You of course you have to say that because he's your, but you have seen him where? Are you the one who sees him for us, then who voted him?
You watch.
Where are you seeing him for us? For us, we want to see him. We don't want to tell us that you saw him. For us, we are not seeing him. You, where are you seeing him? You see your... was defending his colleague. But that's the problem. That's the thing. Even if you see him in parliament, you will the one. For us, we also want to see him. In
parliament. That would be
as being a comrade. But it's allowed. but that's just one of the examples. And secondly, members of parliament, you must be seen present on the Hansard. Because clearly and truly, also us as constituent members, we have issues. We have issues, and they are known. They are known. So who's fighting for Ugandans? Actually, the closest member of people who can take matters to national level, I've seen the Rutamaguzis of this world, and they have achieved for their constituencies. In terms of government programs, in terms of all these, they have come and made arguments. However, people have made parliament now look like it's a place for opposition to talk. Honestly, if you go on a spectrum of 100, and people will start saying, some of us don't want to be in the news, but that's the only place where we see you. You're not in the news. We don't see you speaking in the parliament. Where do you speak from? You're not on radios. You're not. Where do you speak from? Are you speaking to your wives or your husbands? That's really... So I think when you go to parliament, one of the major things that needs to be, you need to be seen. At least, because even people have been having an attack on the discussions, political, but those discussions are educative, are informative. Yes. Come and tell people what's going on in parliament. Forums like this, you invite members of parliament every day. What do they tell you? See, you know, those funny excuses.
Absolutely.
But you must also inform. One of it is informative, that the government is doing like, for example, this previous financial allocation, the budgetary allocation and what. How many of us, honestly and truly, ever saw a member of parliament coming out to break down? It was only, and this is what we say, majority of them are opposition people who come out to say against.
What is happening?
They are the ones who have taken center place on most of the TVs and radios. For whatever reason, they know. But for example, you go to the ruling party, I don't know how many of you ever see.
And we talk about representation. We talk about having part of getting into delivery is starting the conversation itself.
Exactly. You must ignite the talk.
We're still saying that members of parliament should be on the floor to have that conversation. If there is something that needs to be addressed, that is the first place to actually put it. So if we don't see them there, obviously it's also worrying to the constituents. But Robert, while we're at this, we're also looking into what could be bringing about this kind of absenteeism. Why aren't members of parliament actually there? Felix did talk about a number of issues. Some of them are hiding, whereas at the same time you get to see them. But more of the impact of that.
Well, the problem is much bigger than just not seeing these MPs on the floor of parliament. One, the electorate has to elect these people. You know, there is what we call civic education and empowering masses with the right information to know why they vote. A big challenge we have in Uganda is you can do a random sample on the streets, go to markets, ask Ugandans what people in these different political elective offices do. Ask a person, what is the role of your councillor? They don't know. Even if you ask someone, in the constitution, what are the roles or the role of His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni? Kufuga gwanga. But they don't know. Ask a person, district chairperson, what is their role? These division mayors, what is their role? What are the roles, the functions of a Lord Mayor? Go to members of parliament. Now, when you don't know what the roles of the person you're voting for in office, that becomes a problem. And members of parliament know this very well, that the electorate do not know. Otherwise, if they knew, that house half would not be in parliament. But because the electorate don't know, they're excited. We are electing a member of parliament, but what is he going to do? They don't know. That's why when we had issues like wave, Fetulonda wave, people removed the quality and substituted it with something else.
That's your opinion, Robert.
Because they didn't know what they're voting for. Now, members of parliament,
actually, one would argue that they took out the ones that were not representing them. Because we saw people who had just been there for one term, and people were like, no, this person has not been
I may not want to open a tin of worms now. Because I want to first, I'll just get back to that. Yes, because people did not know, and up to now, many do not know the roles of a member of parliament. Even it is exhibited in some places, their pattern of voting. These Nkundas, I'm with him here. They one time elected someone who told them, aren't you from Rubaga South, aren't you a voter? And they did. He's a member of parliament. Someone you vote to go and become rich, to go and just eat. It was a slogan and they gave him votes. So people do not know. Now, when they don't know, these people take advantage that a member of parliament doesn't go where it matters. My brothers talked about opposition members of parliament, very vocal. In my time and practice as a journalist, there's one thing I identified. We had members of parliament who would never speak where it matters. On the floor of parliament, they will never debate, they will never say anything. Now, when everything is done and dusted, you meet them in the corridors of parliament, on the steps of parliament. Come, I give you a bite. Then they speak. But where the debate would have taken place, they have not mentioned anything. And when you see them on news, when you hear them on radio stations, where it mattered most, they never spoke. Where it matters less, because that was a time to debate, a time to reason, they didn't. But we shall still commend them. At least they bring out some voices. Now, going back to people not knowing. Many members of parliament, if you go to their constituency and ask, they'll tell you that man has worked for us. We didn't lose out. This person will never come to parliament, will never say a word. But you know what he does? He doesn't miss a burial. He has a carpenter where if someone dies, you simply communicate to his office, you get a coffin. The drunkards in the area, he sustains them. Moving on, he pays school fees for a number of children. You know, he has injected money in various women's circles. He has brought, he donates today poultry, tomorrow goats, cows, you get it. He does these things, and that man is very powerful in our constituency. You cannot defeat him. They'll tell you, this nigga in our microfinance circles, he's everywhere, but he's not in the house. Molen and Felix, that member of parliament, to the ordinary citizen, is the most important and very. Legislation is not part of that, because that is what, even when they are campaigning, how many of them have you ever had fronting, we are going, but the things they'll tell you, he will even tell you, I'll construct a bridge, and you tell him, but honorable, there is no river here, I'll put the river. You know, if there is no river, I'll put the river and construct the bridge.
Just sarcastic.
And we walk it up. Ombaka, he has delivered. So, people lack information too. There is no proper monitoring or an institution that holds parliament accountable. I see Kosase, I see PAC, squeezing people here and there. But who holds parliamentarians? Because the electorate don't have the power. Let's be very honest. Power lies in the people, whatever. They don't have it. Felix talks about his MP, my good friend. But he doesn't have power to recall him. He will just say, let's wait for 5 years to elapse, we shall show him. There is nothing. The electorate are not informed, they don't have the power, and they don't have avenues, proper avenues, for them to know that a member of parliament is. There was a time a man, I think it's called David Procol, he had come up with a specific report showing how these members of parliament performed each. They fought that. So the electorate, many don't know, does my member of parliament speak? Others think their member of parliament is very active, yet a man is active on the stairs of parliament. A man is active on radio stations. He spoke. But we want, when it comes to proper laws, when it comes to you going on the floor, you're on radios talking and talking, my people don't have this. But where it mattered to raise a point of national concern or what, you didn't. Where it matters. So ignorance of the electorate, coupled with the lack of an institution where parliament is accountable. No one questions those people when they wake up and say, I think our allowances are little and all that, that will go through. When they absent themselves, that will go through. We don't have a clear institution that reigns over parliament. They're the alpha and the omega of what they are doing. But also, there isn't a proper mechanism through which the electorate can know what their member of parliament does. A person in Chegegwa, if the woman MP comes or any other and chooses to be in Kampala doing nothing or goes to parliament and sits there, how will they know if they don't have TV sets?
But I think the focus of the electorate would be on the delivery. That is one way for them to know. But also, so whether you come to parliament and attend and you but as long as you deliver.
And deliver in what? Because you're supposed to represent us, bring up issues to the August House, let them be debated, then government either puts them in the budget for the next financial year, if they were not there, or if there were these allocations, you ensure that then the concerned people do that. Then when you are having laws, also participate, bring in your input into these laws. So you digging wells, you building hospitals, these are not core mandates of a member of MP. I mean a member of parliament, they are not. Those it's you going out of your way. Those it's you being able to make friends and you bring these services. But the core, then also you find that there is also another challenge of the parliament is so big. Some of us have proposed on different forums that let's have the upper and lower house because you're 529. Molin, good members of, I spoke to one of my good friend and senior legislator, a woman I respect so much in this parliament with a lot of experience. When I was Cecilia, well, I think parliament was marking its 100 years and we'd had a live broadcast in parliament. I remember that. And we're trying to compare and she told me, but some of them, you may blame them, but for a new entrant in parliament, when do you attract the speaker's hand? That there are those seniors that will raise and definitely can attract. Some of them come and even when they try, some give up. How many minutes do you have to debate an issue as a member of parliament? The speaker raises and says, you have 2 minutes. Now you get a man like me or Uganda, we go to parliament. Tell me I have 2 minutes to make your, then there is point of point of interaction, point of this. I saw a minister struggling because he was called a junior minister. So this is too much. We need to split. Either we go back and say no. Let's reduce on the number of constituencies.
Which might not really happen.
Or let's have a lower and upper house so that at least people are few. They can easily, even if you're a class teacher, you can't train over 529 students. You said you once taught. And you think you're going to see whatever, you're going to be able to discuss meaningfully certain things. That's why it is, the eyes have it, So it's so big of a parliament that it demotivates some members of parliament. And the last, though it may not be very serious, the quality of members we elect. I don't want to mention names, but many times I've seen some members of parliament standing up because they don't debate in local languages. Standing up and makes 3-4 sentences, and the entire house goes into laughters because of language barrier. Because they can't express themselves very well. So they choose to keep quiet and play safe. We've seen this all over social media. Before the speaker, before English, then also composure and ability. The electorate have cheapened this position of being a member of parliament. They have cheapened the quality of some of our members of parliament. I use the word some, is very wanting. Some may not even qualify anyway. It's very, very wanting that they cannot meaningfully debate. That is why you see journalists like Semuju Uganda. That is why you see lawyers like Muhammad Nsereko. That is why you see doctors, people that are able, articulate, and can debate issues. Some of these people cannot, even when they stand. Recently, I saw one trying to raise an issue on the floor of parliament. My good brother, Segirinya Muhammad. And everyone is bursting into laughters. Either we localize that, we have these machines that we see when we go to international forums that translate where there's a translator. And the MP can freely express themselves. I know very talkative, very eloquent MPs in Uganda, here in the central. When they speak on these radio programs, when they meet them on the floor of parliament, a person cannot speak. They can't express themselves. So they are playing it safe. So, size, the parliament is so huge. Quality of who the electorate decide to send to parliament also matters. If this person will, and you see, if they know even how to make research, because this parliament is a mixture. You're finding experts in law, you're discussing law. You're an and Felix Nkunda gets on the floor. Now your speaker brings something. Now you also want to come and meander. Like to playing safe, we need to put the quality of MPs, reduce the size of the August House, have an institution that monitors, supervises, and holds parliamentarians accountable, have methods that the electorate are able to know how their member of parliament is functioning, but also we must ensure very, very well that we find ways of having the upper and lower parliament.
Very good points that you're bringing out, Robert, and I did get attention on the fact that we might have language issues in parliament, and it's no wonder most countries have taken on traditional languages, or what would be cultural. And I think it also alludes to the fact that there was a suggestion to have Kiswahili.
Oh, did you see that drama recently in the East Africa Legislative Assembly? Where one member of parliament, I think she's from Congo, she began expressing herself in Kiswahili, and she was brought to order, and they told her the official language is English in the East Africa Legislative Assembly.
So that is something that can still be I think, streamlined in as we move forward as a bloc, as East Africa. We could look at some of those issues if we're having members of parliament that cannot express themselves. But also it does speak a lot, especially in terms of, like I said, for me, it might be about representation at that level, yes, but the delivery. If, as a member of parliament, you are unable to probably express yourself on the floor of parliament, but you go ahead to approach whoever you're approaching for your constituency on something that concerns your constituency,
So you
and
go to
that
lobby.
particular thing, yes, and that particular thing is done, then you're doing the work. And I think we might have to consider that too. But Felix, as you come in, as we conclude, we're also looking at how the electorate is looking at these members of parliament. Yes, we might be here saying that maybe they are not taking part in these sessions, but also there is a sense of, are they delivering?
You see, having said that, and a bit of the things that Robert said, I will concur with a bit of things, mostly at his closure. You must appreciate, and there's a wrong narrative of thinking that the bar must be so low, members of parliament, when you say at least someone should have finished S6. I think that's the beginning of unfairness. There should be some sort of price attached to that achievement of being honorable. It can't be that low. Just like they say, if you want to be a lawyer, you'll have to go and do the bar course. There must be some bar we set. Because we're looking at a national assembly that is meant to legislate. Now, how do you expect someone to legislate laws that are going to help us in running the nation if they can't understand the bare of the minimum in that expectation? You understand? We must put the cap must be put to it. I don't know if you get it. That it doesn't have to be that obvious. It can't be for the least in society. Sadly. So when you get an arm of government and the qualification for you is an S6 dropout, or leaver, or graduate.
That's the minimum qualification.
Exactly.
Yes.
That is a wrong minimum.
But it needs to be revised, because that was put across long time ago, when, by the way, a person after S6 would be at a certain level.
And the S6 then was different from the S6 now.
Exactly. So there needs to be revision there.
Because today someone goes up to university and they hardly can speak the language they have been doing exams in for the last 20 years. Yeah. University.
Felix.
I mean, I tell you, you give someone a question. If you see the answers our students give us, with due respect, you would think someone writes Dunyankole in English. Someone puts hati as a joiner of the sentences. Like when someone is supposed to put and someone puts hati.
At what level are we talking about?
I'm at university. I'm telling you, that's where I teach.
No way.
No way.
You read an answer of a university student, sort of like an answer booklet, and their answering is full of conjoiners of their dialect, mother dialect. Fis Uganda.
Animals
someone gives in their answer laisi, the word laisi, to mean cheap. Like when you say bei laisi. Like this is the thing. So now, if you are struggling with graduates, let's see, can you imagine if you're giving us S6?
To interpret the law.
We don't have anything about S6. Honestly, there's nothing but we're talking about a national Parliament, a house that is supposed to protect Ugandans in terms of legislation, to help Ugandans draw closer to international deliberations in terms of conventions, in terms of protocols, just to mention but a few. Okay, someone who can articulate, because Parliament of Uganda later on directly works into the East African Parliament, then African, then the world. Aren't you proud when you hear the likes of Thomas Tayewa out there deliberating about homosexuality, and you feel represented?
Of Cecily of what?
Yeah. The former speaker, yes, she would speak in this convention and says, no, we are not party to this because our. But how do you feel when you send a member of parliament to these conventions and all they can do is wait to sign for allowances? Nakuwa tabusawo buliko, they have those bags that have the themes of the convention and what, and they can't come back here and inform, because these people attend oil and gas symposiums, they attend trade and what, East Africa, they attend all this in USA, in what, in Japan. Have you ever had a member come to the information called what, this media center, to say we had a symposium, youth in Uganda, prepare yourselves, there's oil? Who? Go to these members of parliament who are in charge of works, money workers, what they are called, laborers, workers, members of parliament.
Employment.
The Bakabulindis, the Margaret, the lady called, those ones. Bagasacha Bakozi, what is their use? And as Robert said rightly, accountability. Today, you see KCCA women are not paid for how many months. Government is are striking. They are chasing vendors. Those are the people. That is your electorate. Every day these things are happening. When you hear, we need to have, you see, honestly, you may not blame them much. Because today, Parliament has become another venture for wealth. I can access a good loan. I'll be sure of a good amount of money to buy a car. I will, then I'll have the name honorable even when I'm emeritus. That's why people say diode. But we are losing the quality because our standards are so low. Let me just take you through who an S6 leaver is. He's a person in Uganda who probably has learned good history of Napoleon, not even NRA, NRC. And I was having a very crude argument yesterday with one of my professor friends at university, telling them how foolish are we that we don't have the NRA, NRC, that trajectory when they took power, taught in any class. Tell me where it's taught. But we are busy. Now, NS6 in Uganda knows Zulu Natal, no, not even many, how many of them know Kwame Nkrumah? That one is a bit relevant. They know Napoleon, Bismarck, the late Queen of England. They know Tsimanyi Bichirwe, it is of where. For some of them who are lucky, who did a bit of science, they know how to cut a frog, how to cut a cockroach, photosynthesis, dicotyledonous seeds.
That is pure Felix.
Yeah, but at S6, this person has not even chosen a career. They're just still looking at everything.
And I'm trying to show you a typical S6 of Uganda. And their abilities of survival. What can an S6 in Uganda do? But for you making that a standard, a lower standard, because actually the standard is, when you want to give us a lower standard, you've given us the bare minimum.
Yeah.
Anyone, as long as you have your passes in S6, Jangu, you come and make laws. Really? That's how we end up with those people China was talking about. Because until we make a decision to change the language, English is our language. We cannot waste time debating whether when Swahili will come. That one we won't even go in that bit. But until we make that decision, and which may not see the light of day, because Uganda being a very tribal, diverse country, how do you conglomerate that? But if English is the command of language in the August House, shouldn't that be also one of the things we look at?
When we're sending someone
yes, down. For you to apply to electoral commission. Because it is your duty is to speak. But if you can't speak, Why are you being given a pass to go to a house where you can't speak?
You're going to represent people.
We don't
Bring their
represent by body.
Which is why we're even talking about parliamentarians that are there and not saying anything.
Representation is not by body.
I want to tell you, colleagues, I want to confirm this. No fear of contradiction. I've seen very eloquent members of parliament in their mother tongues. Listen to them on radio.
And that's good.
And when they go on the floor of parliament, my friend, they will never speak.
But we're not against that. We are not against that. The point is, why not have someone who is similarly eloquent in the national language?
Because it is the only language they debate in. So that should be put part of the qualifications, Robert.
And not to be diversionary, but still on the same point. Even sometimes as we blame these people, may I also look at the electorate. I've been able to, as we look at that, I've also sometimes looked at the electorate. For many positions, or for many contexts to have as members of parliament, there is always that person who has all these qualities, but the electorate will never choose.
But Robert, I think you've said that like 3 times already in this show, but let me kindly allow me to just answer that.
The electorate also.
No. Let me tell you, you people, there's something you fear to mention. Leadership in this country has delivered that kind of electorate. Because you use the electorate for what you want.
Ankunda stands very eloquent.
You see,
someone from there.
But the
Nkundas
Nkundas have also been suffocated by the political system here.
And
even if you have a professor, even if you have a professor today,
from politics,
even if you have a professor today, as a member of parliament, the political practices in this country, where caucuses are the ones that vote, not individual merit, caucus, kwa ujumla, Chirabo, Molen, Felix, and who? Because we are in this caucus, if right, wrong, what, bogus, what, just.
The winner takes it all. We are in democracy.
Now, that's the thing. That's the thing. So then don't blame the electorate. You have caused this anger, and you see.
Give us the best. We go kwa ujumla.
Just a moment,
we should steal from the best.
In the absence of a given alternative, people would even vote a bed, a chair, a cup, because of the suffocation. When you need to open up the spaces to what you want to call democracy, but yours is limited democracy. It is individual democracy. That because Robert wants this, it has to be. Now, when it comes to electorate, because and by the way, that should not be something you take lightly. When the electorate is voting foolishly,
yes,
as it is, it should be a scare. It should be an awakening. It should awaken the leaders that there's a problem. That you call foolish is a response to a tired democracy, to a tired population. Like in Uganda we say abantu abako. I'm sorry, I don't know how to say this thing. Like, have you ever played that thing called Chifiris? Like come what? It's like you're the ones who spelled this game. But if you remember when the CA was being voted,
it was quality.
How do you think so? People were believing that merit was key. Merit was key. But even today you can't prove that the smart people are doing anything good. And we can mention them. We can start from the various ministries. You have doctors, you have professors, you have who as permanent secretary, you have as commissioners, as engineers, as what? Go to for example, you go to the full ministry like Ministry of Works, the unioners of this world. But you still have a pothole city. You have KCCA. You have a road mayor who is a lawyer. You have they even have a full technical, you call it technical wing. You even give it technical.
The technical
now, the technicality is evidenced in potholes and filling potholes with the soil. So can you still prove that also that doesn't? Now, the electorate are confused. We don't know. That's why they end up bringing what you want to call the jerry can politicians. That's why you end up having people to win elections by slogans like Nafe Katu Die. Because the electorate is not seeing even sense in the technocrats. Now, Omuntu Wajira with the slogan saying Nafe Katu Die, it means he's simply telling you others are satisfied. It's about eating. Now Parliament is about Mugano.
Commercialization of politics.
Absolutely. So I
In
get
the
the
political
electorate,
quickly,
I think you just have to put in order.
as we move on, we might also want to look at how we streamline that. Well, the speaker is talking about cutting these wages and all that.
Yeah.
But ultimately, how is this going to help as well? Do you think that we'll see parliamentarians rushing to, now come in parliament because of that? And I'll give Robert just a minute.
One, this is not the first time. The Honorable Rebecca Litwala Kadaga talked about this, brought in a clocking in system, I think, but didn't see the light of day. Because Parliament, there are demigods in their own way. There is no institution that can reign or monitor them. This that the Right Honorable Speaker is saying now, I see it as a threat, but not applicable, and will never see the light of day. I hope time will prove me right or wrong.
Felix.
No, for me, I think what should be done is basically to, first of all, readjust the standard of Parliament. I think the S6 thing is really wanting in terms of want to discuss quality. Second is that if we can have members of Parliament relieved from any other duty as a requirement, when someone gets into an election, they should be relieved of any other duty. This thing of multiple appointments, MP, Member of Parliament, Head Commissioner, Director, what, I think multiplying work. Because ministers don't attend plenary. You've seen the speaker saying, but you people, who want you be? Like, but the minister, the Member of Parliament, is a minister, the president wants him here. I
so
think
the idea
multiple
is let's move
tasks,
away from the multitasking.
Let's leave them to be members of
Well,
Parliament.
some of the other stuff also happening, we will be looking at some of the headlines across some of the dailies. And in the Daily Nation this morning, showing a story, Days of Chaos, shut down. Well, a lot is happening right there, as a lot of contrasting things in Kenya. You might want to get that copy of the Daily Nation and look at what is happening, especially looking at the incident right there with the images that emerged from the ashes of the chaos yesterday to provide remarkable commentary as well on what happened over there. But also the big headline in the Citizen this morning, looking at Vodacom faces shillings 10 billion suit over data privacy, and why you should avoid defaulting on that loan at all costs. Well, quite a lot in there as well. And they also give you a story on the violence flares up as Kenyans protesters defy ban. Quite there for you in the Citizen as well. We'll be taking a short break. When we get back, we look a bit on the traffic situation and also tap into the weather situation for today.
Pick of the day on UBC.
Was brought to you by
Gatawo with MTN Momo Advance. Momo Advance tops up your Momo to complete your transactions. Dial star 165 star 5 star 3 hash to apply. MTN Momo Advance is always available when you need it.
The biggest, the baddest East African Christian Marathon is here. Come participate at the East African Christian Marathon for a prayer run on the 13th of August 2023 at the Lugogo Hockey Grounds. Come represent your family at the prayer run and run for a good cause to build the first call center, which will be East Africa's virtual listener. Come for the prayer run alongside your pastors, leaders, representatives from Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, Congo, South Sudan, and of course Uganda. Participate with Honorable Captain Mike Mukula, who is the chief runner and patron. Do not miss out on this opportunity. Make your donation for your kid now from 20,000, 30,000, and 100,000 Uganda shillings, because runs change the world. For more details, call 0781 885 055 or visit our website at www.eastafricachristianmarathon.org. Proudly sponsored by PKF, UBC, Venro Health, Aquafina, and Moving Preacher.
This This is the University of Africa. On the streets, you get your real education. Here, everybody has a degree of something. But the most important qualification is imagination. His reason is to be the GOAT. The reason to imagine is to take the beat and make it lit. So no matter what your situation, just use your imagination.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, we'll look at some of the roads this morning as you get into the city center that you could easily navigate, but also you might need to be aware of some of those that are actually having some intense traffic that you need to be aware of. Coming in from the side of Mulago, we're looking at some of those roads over there that have traffic. You do have a connection from Kira Road. That is where we're seeing intense traffic over there that you might need to be aware of. Also, as you look at Gayaza Road, we do have intense traffic there coming in from the Kampala Northern Bypass into the side of Mulago. You do have quite some intense traffic there, Kaleri. So that means that might be one you need to be aware of as well. And we're looking at the Mulago area. You do have actually a lot of traffic also there as you coming in from the side of Kira, but also Binaisa Road. You do have quite some intense traffic on that road. But as you cross over onto also Tavern, you do have a bit of traffic right there. And also that adds to Bombo Road as you join onto the roundabout indicated by the red lines over there. So that is one that you might need to be aware of. But as after the roundabout, as you cross over onto Yusufule, we're looking at very clear traffic right there. That might be easy to navigate if you're heading into town. But also across Wandegea, as you join onto Bombo Road, there is a bit of clear traffic, just a short distances with quite some traffic, but not that intense, and that should easily get you into town. Away from that, again, if you continue with Yusufule, that should get you onto the lower side of town as well, with quite some clear traffic. But as you continue, also some of the connecting roads of Mulago, Wandegea area, you're looking at Nakasero Road, which also does seem to have clear traffic just as you head over from Wandegea Road. You also look at Lumumba Avenue, also having clear traffic this morning, and that should be easy to navigate as well this morning. All those leading onto the City Square side, where you're looking at a bit of traffic as you build up the connection from Lumumba Avenue and Nakasero Road. That is where we're seeing a bit of traffic with red lines. But again, after that, it does clear as you get onto Kampala Road. We also want to look at the weather situation of the country right now. We'll be tapping in from our satellites, look at how we're forming up in terms of the cloudy conditions out of the country. We also did see quite clear skies starting off this morning across the northern area and most of the areas across eastern Uganda that did start off earlier with also a mix of clouds and sunshine. It looks like we might continue with much of that as we look at more clear weather developing, especially due to most of the high pressure systems that are forming south of the continent, and those have been contributing much of the dry weather that we have across the country. And this morning we're also looking at more dry weather again for the southwestern part of the country. We're looking at Mbarara starting off quite hot, even the satellites indicating mostly hot and sunny weather for areas of Fort Portal as well. We're looking into much more of the dry weather again persisting even as we cross over into the afternoon. Much cloudy weather also as we're seeing right now across midwestern Uganda. So parts of Hoima, Masindi, we're also waking up to mostly cloudy weather this morning. Now we're also looking at a system that is starting to develop over Lake Victoria. That is where we have the green colors right there on the map, indicating that we could be looking at rainy weather coming through. That is for the central parts of Lake Victoria. We might be looking at more rains again spreading across parts of that is Kampala, Entebbe. But for now, we're also looking at that system extending towards Jinja. So we could be looking at those rains for you coming in a little bit earlier this morning. But most of these rains that are even coming in today are quite of low intensity, so nothing much to really cause extremes. We could also be looking at a development in wet weather activities later on in the day across the Elgon area and parts of central northern Uganda as well as West Nile. But otherwise, the rest of the country we do expect to maintain mostly intervals of sunny and cloudy conditions. And while we talk about the sun and all this that is happening across Africa, we also do know that there has been a heat wave alert across most places within the world, North Africa being among those that also have been given an alert for a likelihood of temperatures going up. Just last month, we did see a lot happening, especially when it comes to June analysis, showing that we have had the hottest month on record so far. But right this morning, we're also reading a story on some of the countries within the southern part of Europe that have also been dealing with the heat wave. And this has been attributed to the fact that we have temperatures rising, much of that being linked to climate change. Now, some of the countries that have been highlighted include France, Greece. We're looking at Italy, where we do know that a 44-year-old died due to a heat wave while he was on the road. But also more of the red alerts that are coming in even from the US this morning, indicating that they could also be dealing with extreme heat. And of course, the advisories that are coming through is for people to be aware of this. Just the first week of July, it was reported to be the hottest week on record. So it means that as we go on with further analysis, we're still looking at an increasing trend when it comes to these temperature increases, and we're yet to ascertain how far this could go in terms of how July will be shaping up. But most of what is coming through, even from the World Meteorological Organization, is still indicating that this is linked to the El Nino event that is also expected later this year, as well as crossing over into March of 2024. But we have also had a prolonged heat wave that is across parts of California and South Florida. Also yesterday they did come out, the forecasters at the National Weather Service issued an excessive heat advisory, and of course telling communities to be on watch for areas where about 100 million Americans live. They could be affected by this heat wave, and of course this continues to again be linked to the climate crisis that is happening across the world. We've also seen areas of Vermont that have recently been affected by the extreme weather events, but still more of the extreme weather alerts happening across the world. And we know that this is not just across one continent or one state. It's happening all over the place, and it's no wonder that we are getting into record-breaking amounts or numbers when it comes to temperatures. We will be later also analyzing much more of what that means in terms of each particular region and what are the implications or the impact of this rise in temperatures. But for now, we will be leaving it at that, and we'll go into Good Morning Uganda agenda that will be coming in right after this. My name is Molin Kenyana. I want to wish you a wonderful day.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
The biggest, the baddest East African Christian Marathon is here. Come participate at the East African Christian Marathon for a prayer run on the 13th of August 2023 at the Lugogo Hockey Grounds. Come represent your family at the prayer run and run for a good cause to build the first call center, which will be East Africa's virtual listener. Come for the prayer run alongside your pastors, leaders, representatives from Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, Congo, South Sudan, and of course Uganda. Participate with Honorable Captain Mike Mukula, who is the chief runner and patron. Do not miss out on this opportunity. Make your donation for your kid now from 20,000, 30,000 and 100,000 Uganda shillings, because runs change the world. For more details, call 0781 885 055 or visit our website at www.eastafricachristianmarathon.org. Proudly sponsored by PKF, UBC, Venro Health, Aquafina, and Moving Preacher.
In fulfillment of the constitutional obligation, which mandates the state to make reasonable provision for the welfare and maintenance of the aged, the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development is implementing the Social Assistance Programme for Empowerment, SAGE, designed to provide income security and reduce poverty among older persons. Over 300,000 older persons in 146 districts in Uganda have benefited from the grants. The income security has made life better for eligible older persons aged 80 years and above, registered with the National Identification Registration Authority, NIRA.
Nyewe ndi baranyita Jefferson Kahindi, Rujanjara Kabura, Gomborora Chanamira, Kabare District. Kagamanya kurugirira abebembezi ba RC bari kutugambira n'aharwedi. Akasente kaba kayikuru kanyambireho aha kuboneza biogas yanjye nenyamba kuteka ikabire nenyamba nahatara kwa kamwe nahabwe etara kwesa mantron ka pressure lamp eri kubasa kureta na habaho umuyaga iri kunanka nkatamusora bene etara najireka ninkoza muhega kuteka kusha naguraho nembuzi kandi n'ibindi binshatekereza gukora. Government ka tuyambire kuri netwongera hakasete tukabona kutwa shashura n'abakozi ubuyambe bwa government twire ntibwacira kandi tubushemererwa konka twenda cyokuberekira basika batwongereho.
This is a message from Expanding Social Protection, ESP, implementing the program under the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development. ESP, better life chances for all.
Live from Now Avenue in UBC Studios. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Good morning, and thank you so much for keeping it with us every weekday on UBC TV. It is your morning show, Good Morning Uganda, and welcome to this segment, which is Good Morning Uganda Agenda. Now, what we do here is we have a guest, and we look at issues of national concern. This morning, I'm humbled and honored to be having...
Your context. Your love is overwhelming.
Yeah.
Fight against corruption in this country. But interesting also is you're having a topic that directly proves that you as a Ugandan, you have the role in the fight against corruption. Most of the times, many of us, when you talk about corruption, we say government, but government alone and these institutions cannot fight corruption. They may not be everywhere. Yet you, the Ugandan, you, many times we hear you say, so-and-so is corrupt, there is corruption in this institution, but you do not deliver the right information. Now, I'm honored to have the Deputy IGG with me in studios this morning, Dr. Patricia Achan Kriya, with whom we are going to be discussing the Whistleblowers Protection Act 2010. Now, interestingly, she is one of the people who actively participated in drafting this act. And it's been around since 2010, and it gives you mandate, responsibility, protection, and benefits if you engage in the fight against corruption. Because if you report a corruption case and properly goes through, you match out with a 5% of that money. If it was $1 trillion, how much would you go home with? But anyway, I have fine studios and you are going to be discussing this. Good morning, Doctor, and welcome to the studios.
Good morning, and good morning, viewers out there. I am Patricia Chano Kiria, and I'm proudly associated with UBC. Thank you.
Thank you for honoring our invitation. Now, just to, on a lighter note, when we talk about the fight against corruption, Doctor, we have a number of institutions, yours where you come from, being the lead agency. But why do we see corruption still remain a big problem to Uganda?
Corruption is like an amoeba. It changes forms and shapes every other time. And therefore, you have said we have so many institutions involved in the fight against corruption. I think it's important for the institutions to think about new innovative ways of dealing with the problem. But corruption seems to be flourishing. Yes, it is true. But as the lead institution in the fight against corruption, we have got so many mechanisms in place to deal with corruption. We have a robust policy, legal framework, and institutional framework to fight corruption. But it seems to be increasing. So that calls for us to re-strategize as the institutions involved against, in the fight against corruption, so that we devise new mechanisms in dealing with the problem. And that is the reason why we in the Inspectorate of Government have decided that this war is the people's war, and therefore we want the people to be involved in fighting against corruption because of the nature, the way corruption manifests itself. And the people are the actual victims because they're the ones who, when they go to hospital and they don't find drugs, they suffer. They're the ones who, when they send their children to school and there are no teachers to teach, they suffer as victims. And in Uganda, there is a saying that nanyini mufu yakwata waunya. Because of the implications of corruption. That is the person who will lose a relative because someone else has stolen the drugs. And that is the reason why we say the people, the citizens, must own the war against corruption. And we are struggling to rally them behind us so that they can come as whistleblowers. They report cases of corruption to us. We investigate. Some of them volunteer to be witnesses. When it comes to prosecution, they give us very good and helpful evidence. They give us leads in our investigations, and therefore we really respect the citizen as a rightful victim of corruption, and therefore the citizens have to participate in the war against corruption. And
Doctor, when you talk about the citizens have to participate, the Whistleblowers Protection Act clearly brings out the role of the citizens. And I know you're one of the people who participated in the drafting of this very good law. Now, just give us briefly an insight into the Whistleblowers Protection Act?
Thank you very much. By way of introduction, we have already seen that corruption is covered, and therefore we need to derive strategies. The Whistleblower Protection Act basically brings the ordinary person, the citizen, on board as someone who reports any case of anomaly or corruption found out there. Therefore, in an effort to basically acquire or get enough sufficient evidence, we rely heavily on the whistleblower, on that person who reports these cases to us. And a whistleblower basically is that person who reveals any information relating to corruption to an authorized officer. And then when they come, we protect them. We get the information, we use the information they've given us in our investigations, in our prosecution of the case, but we ensure that we protect that person as a whistleblower. A whistleblower can be an employer of an organization, can be an employee of an organization, and a person who reports to another person is that person we treat as a whistleblower. So a person may be reporting as a private person, may be reporting to a public institution as an ordinary person. And that is why we are saying the people must own the war against corruption by reporting these cases. And at the end of the day, the law actually provides protection for this person as a whistleblower. Yes.
Okay, now no Ugandan can excuse themselves for not being part and parcel of the fight against corruption, because one of the things I've identified is people know they're corrupt. Sometimes people even know how they were able to execute these corruption tendencies, steal this money. They have the entire information that these funds didn't do this, but they never report. Now, when we talk about if you report, where and how is this done? Because sometimes the corrupt in our country have become very powerful. Some are deeply rooted. You go to police, and the people you're reporting to just contact. Hey, there is someone. You go to these institutions. So where should one report, and how safe is it? I don't want to disclose information. Before I reach home, I get a phone call. Chidabo, you wanted to, you, my brother. Okay, we shall see. Then in the evening on my gate, I'm done and dusted.
That would be a very unfortunate incident. But the law provides that the authorized person is that person who has got the responsibility to receive that information from the whistleblower. And within the law, the authorized institutions are very clear. The police is one of those who are mandated within the law to receive such information from the whistleblower. The Uganda Human Rights Commission is one of those institutions. The Inspectorate of Government, the Directorate of Public Prosecution, and others provided for within the law. And those are the institutions the whistleblower can approach and report. So the authorized person can be the Deputy Speaker of Parliament as well, or the Speaker of Parliament, or the Executive Director of NEMA, and others, Directorate of Public Prosecution. So those are the people the whistleblower can approach to report the case. And they are supposed to be protecting the whistleblower. But we have a challenge in our country. The whistleblower cases I have done, sometimes they cease to be whistleblowers along the way. When someone goes and discloses his identity, a whistleblower has got to also protect himself. But if you come to the office and report the case to me, and you go and report to several other people, and then you go and begin talking about it in the Marwa joint, that yes, I've taken the matter to the Inspectorate of Government. So it becomes a problem, because he will have blown his cover, and therefore he does not qualify to get that protection because he has exposed himself. So a whistleblower at that point then would translate to be an informer, because he will have blown his protection, his cover as a whistleblower. Yes.
Well, you've rightly talked about the protection. Now, what kind of protection do you offer this person? Because they may not, the biggest fear here in disclosing is actually, how safe am I? I may not blow up, I may not tell anybody that I'm the one, but the office of the IGG, what levels of protection? Is it depending on the magnitude of the case I'm reporting? Let's also get, is it protection from my job in case I'm suspected? I could wake up and I have maybe an organization and I know the government moves money through that. I work in that organization. My boss suspects that it must have been this person, and then I'm fired.
On mere suspicion.
Mere suspicion.
First of all, it's important for us to appreciate, or for the viewers out there to appreciate, what kind of information can a whistleblower report to these agencies we are talking about. So a whistleblower may reveal any information which he reasonably believes can show that a corrupt or criminal or unfair or unlawful act has been committed somewhere. If the a public officer or employee has failed or refused to comply with any lawful obligations, then that information can be reported. Or if there is a miscarriage of justice that has occurred, or it's likely to occur, then the whistleblower can bring that information to any of those institutions. But it is important for us to know what are the protected disclosures and what are the unprotected disclosures within the law. Now, a disclosure shall be only protected when a whistleblower gives the information in good faith. Now, in this country, Uganda, today, there are some people who use this as an opportunity to fight their enemies. They are bringing information which is probably a rumor, which is unfounded, which wants to tarnish the image of another. So a whistleblower is considered and protected as a whistleblower if he brings that information to these institutions in good faith, and when he has reasonable belief that the information and any allegations contained there or concerning what he's saying is believed to be true and nothing but the truth. And then also, if he reveals the information to an authorized officer, he's supposed to maintain that confidentiality of his identity as well, and then he should maintain the confidentiality even of the information that he has been given. So you find that in order to get that protected disclosure, that must be taken into consideration. The information is given in good faith. The whistleblower must be mindful about protecting himself. He should not go out displaying or disclosing that information elsewhere. Then we have the unprotected disclosure. If a whistleblower makes a disclosure without revealing his identity, however, he shall not be entitled to protection under the law because of those other reasons I have given. So there are types of disclosures. There is information which are internal disclosures, like something concerning your institution, the example you have given. The internal disclosures are made internally to the employer in cases where the complaint pertains the whistleblower's rights at his place of work. So he can give that information as an internal disclosure. But we also have the external disclosure, where the whistleblower sees an impropriety likely to happen or happening within his institution. He can walk to any of these agencies and reveals that information as an external disclosure. It can be made in writing, anonymous, without disclosing his particulars, and then the whistleblower sometimes, to avoid victimization, he has got to really do a lot with protecting himself. Now, in most cases, when an employer gets to know that he has been reported or there is a complaint against him, then he gets concerned, and he may get to know that it is this person X who has disclosed that information. So in most cases, people end up being put on katebe, people end up being dismissed from work, some people, you know, suffer a lot of victimization within the place of work. So it is very, very important that as a whistleblower, you must play a very significant role in protecting your own, yourself, and then also it is a thing of trust. You also protect the person, the authorized officer you have disclosed the information to, and know that the information is given in good faith. Don't just go and report because you know that Chirabo is your enemy and you want to fight him and you want to tarnish his image. That is what most people do, and we discover that in the middle of investigations, that this person actually has an enemy whom he's fighting, and then he's now turning around that he's a whistleblower Yes.
Well, viewers, I'm with the Deputy IGG, and we are discussing the fight against corruption with emphasis on the Whistleblowers Protection Act, that is 2010. Now, you can be part of the topic of discussion, and today I want to give more time to you, our viewers, because I know there's so much that you want to hear from my guest this morning. Corruption has become a cancer, it's become a song, a talk, and recently one of my colleagues made a joke here that if you removed corruption from Uganda, even we can have a lapse of the entire government, meaning that it is corruption. Some people feed on corruption, they have lived on corruption, but we are saying through this law, you, an individual, it empowers you to report corrupt officers, corrupt people to authorities, and you're protected as of what my guest has said. So do not only look at government. What are they doing to fight corruption? What have you done to fight corruption? When we have a law since 2010 that gives you a leeway in the fight against corruption. Now you can use the number on your screen, and I'll be reading the messages out, and my guest will be replying. You can send a WhatsApp message, you can send a text message, and the Deputy Inspector General of Government will be able to answer to your questions. Now, since 2010, this has been around. I must say it has received very little popularization or sensitization. I did a random survey asking people, are you aware of the Whistleblowers Act 2010? And they seemed not so. Told them, well, it is not only giving you power, but even there is a benefit that if you report a case and goes through, you have a 5% of the money that comes back to you. So how have people perceived this? Is it something that has yielded so much results? Do you get a number of reasonable complaints coming to you, and how has it helped in the fight?
Now, the whistleblower protection law, first of all, we look at it as a very, very important mechanism in fighting against corruption, because it encourages the ordinary person, the citizen, to come and report. So you find that everybody then can join the fight against corruption as whistleblowers by reporting, and then this helps us to ensure that people begin to hate and shun corruption and reject corruption because of its implications. Now, this mechanism helps us to get uncontroversial evidence, because we rely on whistleblowers, like I had said earlier on. And when we get that information, it helps us in our investigations and even in prosecution. And when we recover that money, then the whistleblower is entitled to 5% of that money. But in the event that this whistleblower's identity or the whistleblower blew his cover, then the whistleblower still can get protected as an informer. We now translate into an informer, which is also provided for within the IG Act, Section 32 on informers. The whistleblower then ceases to be a whistleblower but an informer. But that informer is also entitled to that 5% of the proceeds of corruption as and when we have recovered. So this is what we use as an incentive to encourage people to join the war against corruption by reporting these cases of corruption to the IG, so that we are able to take them up, we're able to investigate them, we're able to discourage offenses of corruption. But like you said, the Whistleblower Protection Act has not been so popularized. I remember during the time of drafting this law in 2009, 2010, the time it got passed, in the Directorate for Ethics, we tried to do a lot of dissemination of the anti-corruption laws, not only the Whistleblower Protection Act, but also the Anti-Corruption Act, the Leadership Code Act, and so many other laws related to fighting against corruption. And the public appreciated, and the public then was responding. But I think it's a wake-up call to we, the institutions involved in fighting corruption, to disseminate this law further, so that the public gets to embrace their responsibility, their role in the fight against corruption, so that they can come and report those cases to the relevant institutions, so that we take action. Because corruption, like we saw in the beginning, is growing. and changes forms and shapes like an amoeba, and we need to derive strategies. So if people can come and give us disclosures and give us leads, then we are able to follow and we are able to investigate those cases. And we have our regional offices in the countryside. They play a very significant role. So a disclosure can be made in any of those offices, and we'll register it formally as a complaint and investigate. And then when we get the proceeds, 5% goes to the whistleblower. Yes.
Well, imagine if it's $1 trillion now. A number of questions have begun coming in, and I'm going to be dealing more with the questions from the public regarding the whistleblowers law. Now, I'll begin with a bit tough one to you. Good morning, Uganda. It's ironically to listen and watch the Deputy IGG speak to the public what actually doesn't happen in the institution. Apparently, as a whistleblower, you are first harassed by IGG personnel who want to trade the information reported to them. There is a department titled 333 SIC. The IGG as an institution has lost credibility and integrity because they lack the will to fight corruption. Can Madam Patricia give the status of the massive tea project fraud in Chigezi, which was fully and comprehensively investigated and the report submitted? If you can jot them down so that when we begin answering, because the rate at which they are coming in one by one may be quite tricky. Now, the fight would work, but you guys have not done enough to create awareness to people deep in the village. For example, no member in our village knows about this law. That is Charles from Kamengo Mpigi. Highlights on the criteria followed, it would be good in fighting corruption. Well, there is a okay. This one is just thanking you for the good work you're doing, and says he has seen you so many times, the media trying to explain what that office does. Good morning. The whistleblowers are the ones who have ever been arrested by these security operatives in drones. So people are now in fear. Philip from Karamoja, he says people are now in fear. It needs more of community sensitization so that they can improve on their civic competency and vigilancy in order for them to join and on the fight. These thieves, this is Kazora John, Coordinator Renzori Anti-Corruption Coalition in Chengegwa District. Hello, good morning. I'm Banze from Kigumba. I would like to bring to your attention of corruption exists in the office of URA office in Masindi. It starts with the Afande at the reception. He even rejects 5,000, saying that it is not his level. And inside and beyond, please do something there. And we have a problem. Oh, please, let's not bring personal problems. Let's look at national problems. If you want to report this, you can come to the office as a whistleblower. About that is regarding a brother who was removed from a payroll. Now let me look at a few from the text messages for now. Good morning, Madam Achen. Yesterday, State Minister for Trade and okay. Good morning, Madam. Yesterday, State Minister for Trade and her permanent secretary raised dust over tenders in the ministry. What is your take? Onyere Charles. Let's first go with those ones, but please avoid personal messages where now my guests cannot answer. It is not an avenue for reporting today. We are looking at general concern. People are bringing in more of what they are going through and how the office should handle. But the Whistleblowers Act is there, the office is there, and they have regional offices. Yes, let's first look at those.
Thank you very much. I think I'll right away begin with the person who called who sent a message from Kamengo, talking about our unit of III and then the tea project in Kigezi. It is quite unfortunate about that perception about the staff of the Inspectorate of Government. But you know that in every basket of apples, there are some rotten ones. Probably there is someone who wants to compromise, there is someone who is compromising standards. But when such things happen, please, we have an open door policy, approach us and report so that you can help us clean our house. I have not read about the tea project in Kigezi, but if you can bring that information to me, I'll try and dig it out with my colleagues and be able to address it. But thank you very much for the concern. And the people in the villages not knowing about the Whistleblower Protection Act, it is the reason why we do these awareness programs. It's the reason why we disseminate anti-corruption laws, because we want to empower the people so that even the person in the village gets to know. And that is why you see my presence at the grassroots, taking the face of the IG, even in Isingiro, even in Itungamo, down at the grassroots, because we want the people to know their role in the fight against corruption. And there are times when we've been arbiters or mediators to reconcile the contractors, the communities, and the district. And that has worked very, very well. So the fight against corruption, we have so many approaches, like you heard about the institutions we have which are involved in fighting corruption, because we want to build a robust system where the individual is empowered to come and report cases to us. But thank you very much, Charles. Someone said arrests in the community. When people report cases, then they face arrests. This is very unfortunate. These are scenarios where people have blown their cover, or sometimes the institutions they've reported to have not been trusted enough, because there are situations where people report cases, and before this person walks out of the office, the person he has reported or his employer already knows what he has reported. So that calls for a lot of
some,
trust.
like one of the messages said, that's people want to trade this information. Call that particular person and tell him, we have this and this and this about you. So you either pay.
So it becomes very, very risky. And that's why I was saying this is about trust. The person reporting the information must report it in good faith, and the person receiving the information must be a highly trusted person who will not divulge this information anywhere else. But we have challenges, like I said earlier. Someone comes to this institution and goes to so many other institutions, and he's talking to so many individuals about the disclosure he has made, so he ends up blowing his cover, and the protection then becomes a very big challenge. Then the issue of tenders in the ministry. We are having a big challenge in this country, especially in respect to these tenders and procurements, because corruption manifests itself in the procurement processes, within the procurement circle, right from the user department. The user department, of course, puts a request to the procurement unit, which does secretarial work, and the procurement unit takes on responsibilities, and then we have the evaluation committees, accounting officer. Sometimes it's a whole racket in the procurement circle. And how do I know this? When we investigate cases of corruption, especially in respect to procurement, then you realize there is fraud in procurement, there is collusion, there are people who now eat in turns, who say it was a turn of so and so to get this amount of money. But slowly by slowly we are digging that out because we know together we can get to clean the system. We also do systemic investigations. System-based corruption can be unearthed through those systemic investigations. Someone in Masindi said there is too much corruption in URA. Right from the front desk, they're asking for money. And this is what we call the bribery in the Anti-Corruption Act. A bribe is when somebody solicits for money to compromise his position on a certain matter. But you find that it is both the giver within the law, both the giver and the recipient who are liable. And it is very difficult to get information relating to a bribe, because it can be happening even here among us. Someone is texting or sending mobile money. So it happens in different forms. So we need to derive mechanisms of dealing with this. There are times when we have laid traps, set traps, and we have been able to get people. You have heard about people selling jobs these days, district service commissions. But we manage to get some cases, some very good cases, when the public cooperates and brings this information to us. And sometimes we get to know when someone has paid this 5 million and was not given the job. Then he turns around and says, I paid my money, it was supposed to be given to the chairman, so and so, I have not been given the job. So we then look for proof. What is there to show that, did you send it on mobile money? Did you give it to somebody? And people come up and say, well, I received the money, but unfortunately I have to give it back to him because he did not. Then we get the person, why did you receive the money? Was the job for sale, for instance? So there is a lot that the public can do to contribute to the fight against corruption. As whistleblowers, as informers, as, you know, they can report it in any way. Like you remember the Civil Aviation Authority incident at the airport? It was an ordinary person who recorded and made the thing viral. We picked up interest in the matter, and we held boardroom sessions with the responsible persons in CAA and other agencies, and we got solutions. There is now sanity in CAA, and everybody is appreciating. The passengers are welcomed, are treated humanely, are enjoying the facilities in the international airport of Entebbe. And it gives our country a very good image. So if we are going to contribute to national development, this thing they call corruption, we have to deal with it holistically and not just leave it to the institutions involved in the fight against corruption, but embrace it as a citizens' war. When everybody joins the fight against corruption, then I believe we shall take longer strides in dealing with the problem.
Well, more coming in. Good morning, Mr. Chirabo. I am Woligo Charles from Sironko District. I thank Dr. Patricia for the good work and good news in the fight against corruption in our country. But we as people in rural areas, we need government to give us private numbers to report the corrupt people. The other one says, hey, I'm sorry to say, but for the issue of corruption, even though you cry, you can't fight corruption in our country. Thank you. Well, he looks at things that way. And hi, madam, this is Komakesh Douglas from Munyonyo. Thank you for the program and always coming out on the media, especially UBC, to give us information of how we can fight corruption. Now, good morning, Robert. Thank you so much for hosting the right person. I would like to tell the Deputy IGG that she has good policies on paper. Ugandans have seen very little of that in practice. However, I would wish to inquire from her what the Office of the IGG is doing to solve the problem of selective application of the law common in Uganda today. For instance, the iron sheet case seems to have died a natural death because of the big fish involved in it. Professor T, watching from Kampala. Hello, police force. Okay, I didn't get that one. The IGG is being diversionary. It is truly that some characters have personal conflicts and are trying to settle scores. Why doesn't the IGG probe the content of the facts as submitted, irrespective of their personal lives? Well, I may end at those for now, yes, Doctor.
Thank you very much. I think I'll begin with Professor T. Thank you, first of all, for listening in and watching. You say we have very good policies on paper, right? I agree with you entirely. We have got very good policies, very good laws, and we have people who come to benchmark from other countries and go and implement these laws, and they're very, very successful. We need to begin to operationalize some of these things. We need to make these laws work in our country by testing them, just like we're talking about the whistleblower protection law. But we need to join hands, because if people do not report cases of impropriety, then it becomes very, very difficult. But you said we have this on paper, we are not implementing. What are we doing about the Mabati incident? You realize that several agencies were involved in investigating this matter, and the lead agency was DPP. The State House Anti-Corruption Unit did investigate, and the matters were taken to DPP for prosecution. You realize that our office, for us, we did a comprehensive one in management of the relief program in the office of the Prime Minister, and our findings, our reports are out already. We even took action and arrested some people from the office of the Prime Minister for involvement in these anomalies. But you realize that, you know, corruption, like I said, manifests itself in different forms, and we need so many agencies. I know Ugandans are out there saying there's duplication of work here, but we believe a lot in complementarity. Each of these agencies have got their mandate, and we work together. We have got the interagency forum, which brings together all these agencies involved in the fight against corruption, where we sit and reflect on some of these cases. For instance, the Mabati one, someone said, well, someone else should handle the goats, another person should do this, another person. So we sometimes share responsibilities. But the DPP is charged with the responsibility of prosecuting, and at the Inspectorate of Government, the law gives us also the mandate to prosecute. That is why we were able to apprehend these people, have them arrested, take them to the anti-corruption court, and it's a matter we're actually prosecuting. I do not want to go into the details because when something is in court, it is sub judice. But thank you very much, Professor T, for bringing this up. Someone said we're being diversionary, these issues of personal conflicts. You know, viewers, corruption, like we saw in the bribe, it takes two people, the giver and the recipient. But we have instances of when the deal goes sour, then someone says, well, I am coming to report a case as a whistleblower. But when you investigate the case, you realize that he was part of the deal, and therefore you end up rounding him also as well to be a witness in the case. We have so many such incidences where people bring their personal issues, and they want to use government institutions to sort their personal issues. But the law says he who seeks equity must come with clean hands. If you know that you're out there and you are involved in a deal and the deal has gone sour, you cannot turn around and be a whistleblower. Remember, we said someone must report in good faith. If in the process of our investigations we discover that you had a hand in it, then we take you as well, because the law is quite clear. Corruption normally thrives in environments where there is no transparency, where there is no accountability. And Chirabo, you know, accountability begins with me. If I am not accountable, then I do not have the moral ability to be able to talk about issues of accountability. So accountability is the sense that those who provide services have got to walk the talk, have to walk in the light, and have to be as transparent. That is why recently, when we were concluding the declaration of assets, we said leaders must be trusted by the people. And in a bid to promote, to fight corruption, we want to know that whatever everybody has as a leader should be commensurate to his well-known sources of income, to his emoluments, and we know that this person is surely not a thief. But the people, when they get positions of responsibility, they want to steal as much. Now, when you tell them declare, they begin to hide. But we're encouraging whistleblowers to even report those.
I see time is quite not so much, but there's always been a general concern that you go for the small fish, leave the big fish, and that maybe you're not independent as your mandate is, that there are always a lot of political interference, there is always a lot of people intervening in your investigations. So we say we have the institution, we have the laws, we lack will, we lack independency of these institutions. I think
I need to give clarity and specificity on that. You see, corruption, like sin, is corruption, whether big or small. So if I'm catching Mukene and I'm recovering money,
you want a big
200
fish.
million, 30 million, 1 million, one by one makes a bundle. But then I would like to ask you, who is the big fish? We had that, the Mabati incident. We thought that was a big fish as well. We have NSSF, we have UBOS, we had MAIF, we have had several high-profile cases. Now there is UNSBS, UNBS something, and those are all big fish involving huge sums of money, huge sums of money. But like I said, corruption, like corruption, like sin, is corruption. Big or small, you cannot say this sin of mine is smaller. The person who murdered is the one who committed the big one. One by one,
are you independent?
Makes a bundle. The law, we are independent as an office, and nobody interferes with our work. We receive our cases, we implement our mandate as the Inspectorate of Government, we issue reports, and within that we even act on some of the findings we find as the Inspectorate of Government. What is a challenge to us at the moment is we are not able to move in a robust way and spread our wings all over the place because we have resource constraints. But progressively, with the realization of resources, we're able to do what we are doing. We bite what we can chew. And I know the citizen out there would expect us to be everywhere. And most of what we do is sometimes not for the cameras. Sometimes it's not for the cameras because citizens want to see and feel what is happening. But now that we are taking the war against corruption to citizens, they will be able to see, and the perception will change, because if they embrace the war against corruption, then I know we shall take longer strides in this war and corruption will be dealt with. Because like HIV/AIDS, you realize that the country had to derive strategies in dealing with it. Even recently, COVID. So corruption is an enemy. If you go for war, you have to scope your enemy properly. You have to know the tactics your enemy is applying before you strategize to move and attack. So we need to attack these enemies in a smart way, strategically, with the new innovative mechanisms we're talking about, with the full involvement of the citizens.
Before I let you go, Doctor, let me have your final remark to my viewers.
To the viewers out there, I am encouraging you to partner with the Inspectorate of Government in the fight against corruption, because this war against corruption will be won if all Ugandans embrace it, if all Ugandans take up the mantle, if all Ugandans take their responsibilities. So report those cases of impropriety to the Inspectorate of Government, and together we will win this war against corruption. Let's desist from lamentations and crying and lamenting. It is time to act and come up with real workable solutions to deal with corruption as a challenge in this country. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Patricia Achan Okiria, who happens to be the Deputy Inspector General of Government. Well, you have a role in the fight of corruption. There is a law that protects you. That is the Whistleblowers Protection Law of 2010, and they are waiting for you to deliver information. Together, we can bring this giant down. See you in the next hour, where I'll be still discussing something else in Good Morning Uganda Extra. Don't miss, Ruben is up next with sports. Good morning.
This is the University of Africa. On the streets, you get your real education. Here, everybody has a degree of something. But the most important qualification is imagination. His reason is to be the GOAT. The reason to imagine is to take the beat and make it lit. So no matter what your situation, just use your imagination.
The baddest East African Christian Marathon is here. Come participate at the East African Christian Marathon for a prayer run on the 13th of August 2023 at the Lugogo Hockey Grounds. Come represent your family at the prayer run and run for a good cause to build the first call center, which will be East Africa's virtual listener. Come for the prayer run alongside your pastors, leaders, representatives from Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, Congo, South Sudan, and of course Uganda. Participate with Honorable Captain Mike Mukula, who is the chief runner and patron. Do not miss out on this opportunity. Make your donation for your kid now from 20,000, 30,000 and 100,000 Uganda shillings, because runs change the world. For more details, call 0781 885 055 or visit our website at www.eastafricachristianmarathon.org. Proudly sponsored by PKF. UBC, Venro Health, Aquafina, and Moving Preacher.
In fulfillment of the Constitution obligation, which mandates the state to make reasonable provision for the welfare and maintenance of the aged, the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development is implementing the Social Assistance Program for Empowerment, SAGE, designed to provide